The early results are in, and you know what that means, right, Shep?
No more political ads, Greg.
Yeah, well, that too. Plus, 4 teams are about to be knocked out of the playoffs. We'll tell you who next on Extra Time. Hello everybody, Greg Lawless and Shep Messing here in the Extra Time studios. A huge week ahead of us as the 4 conference semifinals move into the second leg. Shep, what about the first legs? I mean, 3 games had goals after the 85th minute.
Yeah, Greg, I love those late goals, and I think there's a common theme there. It was the better teams in the series that got the goals. Houston, I think the better team. Columbus, the better team. Salt Lake with a late goal. I think at this time they're better than Chivas.
Even though they're a seed below Chivas.
Yeah, I think that's a measure of the team's confidence and character when they can stay in a game after the 85th minute, need a goal, and get one.
Well, let's jump right into the second leg. We'll go east to west. We're going to start with the Kansas City-Columbus game. It ended up 1-1 in the first leg. Steven Leonard, the rookie, with a stoppage time goal to even things for the Crew. Kansas City really needed a win in this one, didn't they?
Greg, even more than a win, I think they needed a multiple goal game. I didn't think Kansas City can afford to squeak out a 1-0 win or the tie that they ended up with and be in good shape for the second leg.
Well, it was a great goal by Davy Arnaud that Kansas City got, but it was really the only Kansas City attack that you can really remember and think of. Josh Wolf started on the bench. The flashpoint of the game, however, has to be Herculez Gomez's red card. I mean, how much did this hurt Kansas City?
Well, first of all, he gets a red card for lack of intelligence on the play. No need to make that tackle at that point in the game, that position on the field. So he definitely hurt his team. But you really mentioned the problem for Kansas City, Greg. Aside from the one beautiful goal, and it was a beautiful goal, they didn't have any fluidity in their attack. They needed to do better.
And on the other hand, of course, you have Columbus, the number 1 seed, Supporters Shield. They were looking great. I mean, they showed their class, didn't they?
There's no question. We've talked about this Columbus team and the depth in the roster, and you always love one player, and I agree with you, Alejandro Moreno. But some of the other guys didn't have great games, Eddie Gavin, Robbie Rogers, but they had the character, they had the depth. Ziggy goes to his bench, they get the all-important goal.
Well, Guillermo Barros-Schelotto probably should have scored in the first half, but they eventually got the goal, as you said. The key to me for the next game is the player you just mentioned, Alejandro Moreno. His work rate wears down opposing defenses, and it makes it so even in the 90th minute you can end up getting the goal. What is the key for Kansas City, do you think?
I think the key in all of these second games, but especially for the underdog, Kansas City, I think the key is getting the first goal. If Kansas City can find a way to get the first goal, all of a sudden Columbus at home, maybe that composure starts to wither a little bit.
And if Columbus gets the first goal?
Then it's 5-0.
Prediction on this one?
I think it's Columbus. They're too good, they're too consistent, too many weapons, and I like your man Moreno. I think they get it done.
Well, I agree with you. I think their confidence is very high right now. They're going home, and they should wrap this one up. The 2-3 series in the East wasn't the wildly entertaining match we all hoped. It was 0-0 between Chicago and New England. There were plenty of hard tackles. These are obviously 2 bitter rivals that have met each other before in the postseason, but I think, Shep, that you and I both agree both teams will actually be kind of happy with this result.
Greg, I don't think there's any question. If you're New England, and we've talked about how decimated they've been by injuries all year long, you figure how can they compete? They did a great job. They really closed down a Chicago team. They took away their strengths. They got a good result where New England has to feel, okay, we survived to play another day.
Well, no Twellman, no Ralston, obviously problems for New England that way. I think Chicago will also be happy with a 0-0 draw on the road, on the turf at Gillette. Even though there was no Twellman and Ralston, this is still a good New England team. They have plenty of veterans and experience. And Chicago, I think, can convince themselves that they did well to get that result. They now return home to Toyota Park. In Chicago in the playoffs, the Fire are 15-2-2 at home all time.
Well, I'll give you the flip side of the coin. That's a great record in the playoffs, but they haven't played that well at home during the regular season. So if you're New England, I think you can have some confidence that if we get into this game, play rough, play physical, Lorenowitz, Shalry Joseph, shut down Blanco, and they have the surprise in Matt Reese. If we can get to penalty kicks, nobody's more confident than New England if they can get to PKs.
Well, that's a good point. I think for Chicago, on the other hand, the key is the flank play. They need to get more of that. They had some good moments in New England when Justin Mapp was running up and down the right side. That opens up space for Cuauhtemoc Blanco to work in. If they can do that at Toyota Park, I think they should be able to get the result that they need.
I think it's going to be a great game, and I'm really definitely leaning to Chicago, but they have to show it to me. They have the talent. They have, I think, the better starting 11 on the field. Until they get the win, I'm not convinced.
You have a score prediction on this one?
0-0, penalty kicks.
Oof.
I think it's going to be a good one because don't underestimate John Bush in goal. Quick, agile on PKs as well.
Well, okay. I'm going to go with Chicago. I think they're going to wrap this one up pretty quickly. Okay, let's go west, old man. We'll start with the 1-4 matchup, which is actually 1-5 in this case. Houston got an 85th minute goal from Kai Kamara to earn a draw with New York at Giant Stadium. It wasn't pretty, but the defending champions got a very satisfactory result. And Shep, I mean, it kind of struck a blow to your upset prediction, didn't it?
Well, my upset prediction is looking very low probability
Yes.
right now. But yes, the ability, Greg, for Houston, and we talked about the character of the better teams to score late goals. They're down a goal to New York. Angel gets a goal early in the second half. But that equalizer by Houston, that's just a class team.
And so confident, and the depth that they have also to bring in a guy like Kamara.
There's no question. Dominic Kinnear has the talent, knows his team. And remember, here's where CONCACAF Champions League, all the other games that these guys have played, he brings in Stuart Holden, Kai Kamara, they produce the goal. That's one of the benefits of playing in the other competitions.
That's true. Well, so Juan Pablo Angel did score the goal for New York. It was his 13th goal in the last 16 games that he's played with New York. But he's really the only attacking option right now for the Red Bulls. His fellow South American attacking midfielder Rojas was benched for the game. What do you think of Juan Carlos Osorio's decision to bench not only Rojas, but also Pietrovallo and Diego Jimenez?
Jimenez played, but
Gabriel
Sichero.
Sichero. Yep.
I love it. I'll tell you what, not too often do you see a coach with enough confidence. Often they bring in their international players and then feel they have to show ownership. You got to play them.
Right.
He didn't like the way they played in the final league game against Chicago, and he benched all three. I thought that was a bold move. Thought it was a great move. Having said that, it left him without some attacking options later in the game looking for a second goal.
Well, last week you had mentioned how they need to go and get those goals, and so they didn't bring in Kanji at the end. They did bring in Pietrovallo. Do you like that decision by Osorio?
Well, I think he was forced into that decision because Ubi Parapovic hurt his back, so Pietrovallo came in really for Ubi Parapovic.
Okay.
Rojas, from my understanding, had his head down, didn't want to know about the game because he had been benched, so he's not an option. And at that point, winning 1-0, Juan Carlos Osorio said, let me get out of town with a 1-0 victory rather than gamble and give up a goal. Didn't work out.
Well, no one on Houston had their heads down. They showed their class and their confidence. They didn't panic. They played the full 90 minutes. And this is the depth that we're talking about. It shows all the power they have, all the weapons that they have. And when you can bring in a forceful player like Kamara versus bringing in a guy like Pietrovallo, you really see the difference between a 1 team and a 4 or 5 team.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question. We've talked about it. It's what's on your roster between number 11, number 18. Houston matches up much better than New York.
Well, New York now goes down to Houston, where the Dynamo were 10-1-4 at home this year. New York 1-8-6 on the road. However, in their only visit to Robertson Stadium, New York lost only 1-0.
And without Juan Pablo Angel in the lineup.
That's pretty big.
So here's the flip side of the coin. If New York Red Bull fans want a glimmer of hope, if you're New York, you're going into this game saying, you know what, with everything we've been through, if we win the next 3 games, we're MLS Cup champs.
Well, how do you see this prediction?
Houston.
I think I'm going to go with Houston too. It's a mismatch of talent right there, and the home fans in H-Town are hard to overcome. In the West, the 2-3 matchup was the only game that had a winner. Real Salt Lake came up trumps with a 1-0 victory over Chivas USA, a last-minute goal from Yura Movsisyan. And Shep, this guy Movsisyan is carrying the team right now. He has 5 goals in the last 6 games.
Greg, these two teams in general, I thought played the best soccer of the entire playoff series. And Movsisyan, I have loved him all year, but he's finally found the missing link, the ability to score goals. He's big, he's strong, he's physical, technical on the ball. These goals he's scoring are wonderful.
And it helps also if you're going to score clutch goals, if you have a player like Javier Morales delivering the ball. He has proved to be a classy player. Makes sense why they signed him and actually bought him from his team in Spain. The key for Chivas has to be to stop Morales. If they can, they should be able to get a result. But Shep, How do you stop Morales?
I'm a big believer in a game like this with a player like Morales. You've got to shadow him. Jesse Marsh, follow him to the concession stand. Don't leave him alone for a minute on the field. Jesse Marsh has to try and shut him down.
And don't give up set pieces because he's obviously very good at going for goal or serving a ball into the box. Chivas also need to start scoring. They're desperately missing Atiba Harris and Aleko Eskandarian up top. Someone who can stretch the RSL defense, anybody. The key for them in this game, I think, is whether either of them can be fit by game time.
Yeah, I think that's a key for Chivas. They need to score goals.
Well, Harris right now still not in this. Eskandarian, though, has started to train for Chivas, and I think he'll be a big difference maker if he can come into this game. He was a huge factor down the stretch for Chivas, scoring a couple of important goals to get them into that second place position.
Yeah, he's a nasty player in the best sense of the word. He's got the ability to run at defenders with the ball at his feet. He does have the speed to get out wide, as you were just talking about. So Eskandarian, if he can play, that'll be critical.
Well, he was the 2004 MLS Cup MVP for DC United. Now, Real Salt Lake, their coach Jason Kreis, he's always had that attack-first mentality, obviously with all the goals he scored. Do you think that they're going to sit back and maybe play for a 0-0 draw or something like that, or are they going to come out and go after this one?
Yeah, they're going to go after it. And Jason Kreis said as much. He said, my team plays better when they play aggressively. So I think he's going to tell his team, it's 0-0. Let's get out there, win the game, go on to the next round.
Are you going to go with Chivas or RSL prediction?
I'm on the Salt Lake bandwagon. I think they're playing well. I think Chivas, I love the team. I really do. But I think they have a tough challenge.
I do too. But I'm actually going to stick with my original prediction that Chivas is going to pull this one out. Well, let's take a quick dip into the email box. And Patrick, who forgot to tell us where he's from, wonders who are our top 3 for MVP. Shep, I'm going to let you go first.
Patrick, number 1, Schelotto. 2, Juan Pablo Angel. 3, Morales. I'll give Brian Chink from Houston honorable mention.
Well, Patrick did actually mention whether Morales was in there, so perhaps he's a Salt Lake fan. And in fact, this might be one of the few times that Shep and I totally agree. My 3 for MVP were the exact same. It was Schelotto, Angel, and Morales. Although look for Morales next year, I think, maybe for that top spot. And if you have any questions, if you want to email us, our email address is extratime@mlsnet.com. Don't forget to include your address and your shirt size so we can send you an Extra Time t-shirt. Time now for the Volkswagen Wow Moment of the Week. And he did it last week to get Real Salt Lake into the playoffs. This week, a little bit more Movsisian magic.
Well, it's the 90th minute. Chivas at Salt Lake. Wow. You can't do it any better than that. Morales, Movsisian, that's the game winner.
Well, you're a Movsisian proving to be a star in the making. Perfect for the Volkswagen Wow Moment of the Week. Well, that's all we have on this edition of Extra Time. Shep, any upset specials in the second leg of the playoffs?
Well, Greg, low probability, but I'm still clinging to New York Red Bulls. And I'll tell you, I think New England is going to win it on PKs.
If either of those happen, we'll be talking about it next time, so join us and we'll kick it around.